Hi guys, it's Matt here from Henry Shine. Just doing a quick video today taking you through scanning and crown workflow. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give the option today where we can either copy the original tooth or do a new crown ourselves. So we can go start, new scan and design. Now depending on what way you want to go, you can choose if you want to use the original tooth or do your own design at the very start. So I'll show you how that works. And then from there on, obviously you can pick and choose what you like. So we're going to do 2-3 today. Library, if you want to copy the original tooth, or let's say if you had a central, so the 1-1, and you wanted to, you're prepping the 2-1, and you wanted to duplicate 1-1. So you'd choose pre-op as well. So that's to copy. If you just wanted to do your own tooth, then you choose either library A or C. So I'm going to choose library A, but later on down the track, I'm going to bring in the pre-op myself, just to show you both workflows. But for yourself, you'd either choose one or the other at this point in time. Now you've got to tick at least all of this stuff down here to be able to have the scan tab come up. So we're going to do, rather than do the upper first, we're going to do a pre-op scan. So this has our original tooth on there. Now I apologize for my scanner. I'm also recording over the top of this, so the scanner always works a lot harder. It's already at 100% when it's scanning. So you imagine I've got a video being rendered in the background because I've already done one video, and I'm also recording the screen, so the CPU is well and truly at 100%. Okay, so that's that scan done. We're going to hit the lower button to generate model. It's going to duplicate all of our stuff over. Oh, dear idea. This is going a bit tragic. I got Bluetooth all over my my prep. Do you want to copy all that data over? You hit OK on the top button of the scanner, so it's going to duplicate all of that. And then you can now obviously scan the patient. So we're going to trim this up because all we need to do is rescan that part. So now that we've prepped the patient, oh, this is so annoying. Oh well. Now retraction is absolutely key when you're doing this. Doesn't matter. Okay, if I get data on there, never mind. You know that it's blue tack in there. You can see it. The grey section is blue tack. Now when you are scanning, you want as good a retraction as you possibly can around the margin, and then you can also take a HD snapshot. So what that HD snapshot does is it will capture that margin edge a little bit better for you, so you can see where you need to draw your design to. So we're now going to go on to our lower. Now if by chance that there is something on there that you don't like and you want it to eliminate, like what I've got here, the blue tack, and I found a key just to eliminate the blue tack. Let's say if that's blood, right? There's nothing stopping you from going back into that, trimming it and rescanning. So let's say let's do the lower now. Now I'm only going to pick up what I need, so we only really need the buckle and the occlusal surface. That's what's really important. There we go. For doing our opposing arch. And from here, now we're going to do the final stage, which is the bite. Now, as I mentioned, if there was something on there that you weren't happy with, always inspect the scan before you go on to designing. So always look at it in black and white and see if you can clearly see the margin. Now, if you do need to go back and adjust anything on your scan, always scan for a couple of seconds after it grabs it in, just in case if it's still got a little bit of movement to do. Generate model. Now, I know, as a matter of fact, that I've got Bluetooth down there on my prep, so I'm going to go back and rescan. So no different to, I'll take you through the workflow to show that maybe you don't have enough clearance. All right, so this is now refining alignment. So if I hover over, after this is finished doing this, if I hover over the prep and you realize that you don't have enough clearance, it will actually tell you how much clearance right now. So if I click on this bite, align bite, let's say I hover over here, you can see what clearance there is. But obviously I've got this dag on the side. So I want to fix that now because that's going to affect, so that's a whole heap of blood on the margin. So let's go back into the upper and I can visually see that that's going to give me an issue. So what I'll do if this were me now, I'd use my trim tool, I'd trim that area and I'd rescan. Now if you had a full tooth, you can rescan the full tooth as well while you're at it. If you wanted to just redo the full thing. So there's a couple little dags just left there, so if you really wanted to, I'd use that. Alright, all good. And generate model. So that's going to now generate. Now from here, after we've done this, because we've altered that scan, we do have to go back into the bite, just make sure that the bite's correct. So you can, after this is finished generating, we'll just go back in the bite and it will have a red dot over on the right hand side rather than a green dot. So we just have to pull that back together again because obviously if we've adjusted something, so you can see here, align bite. So what we need to do is we need to basically left click and drag this stuff into place. And then the software is going to do the rest and it's going to align the bite again. So if you do alter a scan, you've just got to go back and you've just got to do that to obviously fix it up. Now in this next phase, what we're going to do is we're going to also go through and do the margin. But before anything, I just want to quickly just go into the upper and take a quick snapshot of the scan. Oh no, I've already done that. Never mind me. All right, so we go into the margin. So in the margin, so you've got several different tools. First, what you need to do is you need to line the tooth up in the center, and you can see there's a little bit of blue tack on there in other parts. Never mind. So you want to line up distal, mesial contact points. So you imagine this is our distal point, that's our mesial point. So if there was an imaginary line, you want to try and line that up with our lingual and buccal. So after that's all set, then you would either go on this particular tooth, I would hit facial, and this is our occlusal plane. So you just want to make sure if I hold the scroll wheel down and move this down, you can see that occlusal plane basically lines up with our cusps. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it needs to be pretty close. To go back to the incisal view, you essentially want there to be no undercuts on this tooth. So I want to be looking straight down like that, and then pretty much all we're good to go. So if you've got big undercuts on your prep at this stage, that's going to give you issues with designing. So essentially, if you imagine your burr on the mill feeds directly in at that angle, so if there's an undercut like that, then clearly the burr is not going to be able to get into, if I spin that back around, it wouldn't be able to get into that area there. So after I'll just lock that in now. So the next step now is to start to draw our margin. So over here is our pre-op. If you wanted to copy the pre-op scan, you come into here and you trace your original tooth of what you wanted. So you'd start to trace this around saying, hey, this is what I want. I want this tooth here to be duplicated over. Now, I had blue tack under there, so I apologize. Oh, that's just... That's fine. The reason why I moved that is just for the simple fact that because it joins here, we just want to trim there. So all good. So that's that, and then we're going to draw the margin on this tooth here. So this is where I prefer trace, and if you've got a HD snapshot, it's beneficial. Obviously, black and white allows you to see the margins a little bit clearer sometimes, but you can bring in color if you wanted to as well. So when you are designing, you want to try and get it on the edge of that crease. If I were to bring in the color tab again, sometimes when you look at it from a top view, it can be beneficial to be able to see where the tooth and what is. I'd say maybe I didn't do a HD snapshot on this particular scan. That's okay. So that's looking pretty good. Always compare in color and in black and white. Now from here we go to plan. So on our planning tab, you can bring in the original tooth. So if you do need to kind of give yourself some sort of a guide, you've got that to go off. So that's all pretty good. And then we can go into design. So in that planning stage, I will go back in here and I'll eliminate. Make sure, yeah, that's gone. So when you are setting this up, you want to try and, if you can, try and resemble roughly where you want the tooth. So rotate. That's looking pretty good all in all. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it just needs to give the software some sort of an idea where you want that tooth. And then we go into the design, and if you wanted your own tooth, you'd hit library A and then hit apply. It's going to use that design that we've done, and it's going to use AutoGenesis to try and propose the perfect tooth for us. So that's auto-generated into there. So that's all pretty good. So we don't have to do too much other than maybe just bring that incisal edge down. And then if you wanted to, you could rotate that a little bit, depending on, yeah, something like that. So that's pretty good. If you wanted to now make some adjustments, I always suggest starting here in this tab. So this way you can kind of make sure your contact points are correct, which they're both pretty good. Incisal view, occlusal, sorry. So you want to make sure that your contacts are pretty close here, so you can see We got a little bit of room to move there. So if that were to be the case, I'll use the move tool here, and I'll grab that area and I'll bring that area out a little bit and bring it closer to our opposing jaw. So that's getting pretty close. There we go, good to go. From here, we can now adjust a few other bits and pieces. I'd use rubber tooth. So you can see just the design here. We're just going to thicken that up a little bit. I'm going to thicken up all these areas to give us... Now I know my contact's not quite right there now, but I'm just trying to give us a better emergence profile on the crown by bringing that out down a little bit lower. And with our margins, you don't want the margins too thin. So see how this area here, we've got a little bit of bulk on the margin? That's ideal. You don't want to have any less than that. So we'll go around and we'll use a dropper a little bit on around the margin. So by having the margins a little bit bulkier means that you're not going to get chipping or fraying around the edge of your margin. If you were to have the margins too thin, then yeah, it's just going to fray and it's going to create a few issues. Well, you know, you could always fill it up full of, you know, some cement or something like that. But so from here, so that's all good. So let's bring in everything. So we're pretty close now to where we want. I'll just, once again, I'll adjust my contacts, bring these in. So this is a mesial, and I'm going to, rather than have it at 100 micron, I'm going to change it to 10, and I'm going to bring that in just a couple of clicks until I get to that aqua color, so something like that. And then on our distal, couple of clicks until I get to aqua, which I'm happy there. So that's our contacts bang on. Occlusally, that's pretty good. You can also, after we've done that, you can use a slice tool. So if you click on it 3 times, it will go through a range of different slicing options. If you go straight directly through this area, so you can see our clearance there. So if you felt like that was too close or you wanted to get it closer, I would come in here, I'd use rubber tooth, not make that too large, and you can grab a part of your tooth and you can pull it out. So likewise, if you didn't like the emergence profile there, you can bring that out. Well, bring that out a little bit. So you can make heaps of little adjustments here if you really wanted to get you a better emergence overall, emergence profile. So if there are any parts on the crown here that you thought were too thin, you can adjust. Let's say if you want to get, once again, closer in contact or thicken up a section, you can. So you can go pretty close. Obviously, that's looking pretty good there, depending on what kind of contact you want on this particular tooth. And then, yeah, we're good to go. So after we've done that, it's always worthwhile to check our overall thickness. So this side, we're not too bad. I'll maybe thicken this up just a little through there by using rubber tooth. And then a little bit more rubber tooth through there. Now this area here is getting a little bit thin as well. Ideally you want to try and get it at blue and green where you can. So that's pretty good. So once again, just do a final check of our contacts. And because I just did a couple of final adjustments there, we'll just bring that in just a little bit. Mesial in. There we go. So good to go, and now we can go into mill, and that's going to mill. So the main things that you want to, when you are designing your crown, let's say this is our, this is a 3, but let's say if it would be a 4, 5, 6 or something like that. So you want to try and make sure that your cusps are lined up. So the best way to do that in design is by using this move tool. So if you grab this cusp here, you can adjust that cusp so that it's at the same height as your other one. So if this was as I said, 4, 5, 6, or 7, then adjust your cusp to the other ones. So you want to do lingual, buccal cusps. You want to make sure that your marginal ridge on these posteriors is lined up. So you don't want your marginal ridge sitting ridiculously high compared to other teeth. And then that's that. There's obviously the smooth feature that if you did want to smooth off parts of a tooth, you can. And if you did want to add anatomy in as well, so the software does allow you to do that. So you can use this define feature. And let's say if we wanted to just put some little bits of anatomy in here. Oh, that's okay. Let's just go down a couple. There we go. So there's a little bit more anatomy, or if you wanted to draw in a little bit more. So you can always just use a smooth tool to soften off. Oh, there's always the undo button. So smooth tool, let's just reduce the size of that. There we go. So you've given yourself a little bit more anatomy there again. So that's pretty much all it, team. And then after there, we go to mill. When you do go to mill, you always want to hit sim. Sim standard is using your standard burrs. So when you do a sim on standard, you always want to check to make sure that you don't have any parts that are going to be over milled. So you can see here on this particular tooth, to get the burr in, to get at that angle, it's going to over mill a little bit in the corners. So on this particular tooth, it's always worthwhile to do a sim in detailed and mill it in detailed on something that's you don't have as much room. Generally posteriors you can do on standard. When it comes to anteriors, inlays or onlays, I'll be doing it on detailed. So you can see here on our sim, now we check, because it's using smaller burrs, it's going to take a little bit longer, but it doesn't take as big a chunk out of the inside of the crown. So yeah, both are going to sit fine, so don't worry. But obviously when you are limited for space, always do a sim, no matter what tooth it is, and do it in either standard or detailed and check it out. And then obviously once you've done that, you can adjust the sprue into a position that you like. Let's just go, let's change C14. Anyhow, obviously you want to do a sim after you've moved the sprue as well. So, and then ideally, if you are going to be putting a sprue on, you want the sprue to be in a non-contact area. So ideally, most of the time, I'd choose to put it on the lingual surface. Let's just go back into the design and back into mill. So ideally, what you want to do is you want to try and move it into an area, say something like that. So that's not going to be in the road visually. It's also not going to be in the road of the tongue. Like let's say if you put it here and you trim it off and you leave, you don't trim it off perfectly flat. That might annoy them. They might feel it just here. Whereas if you tuck it away a little bit more measly, they're not going to feel it. And then once again, do your sim, detailed. Make sure after you've done that, you put a slice through, make sure you're happy with it, and then good to go. Now, if we go back into our design, I'm just going to quickly take you through if you wanted to copy your original pre-op design. So let's click on our pre-op. So see on our pre-op, it gives us our pre-op scan here. So you want to adjust this to roughly in the right position and hit apply. Now it's going to morph that tooth into our original design. So now that that's done, we can start to make a couple of edits and changes as to where we want it. So, so now just do a quick, it's pretty evident that our contacts are not quite right. So I would go distally Oh, hold on, let's bring up this on 10 microns. That's most probably okay to start with. Then we'll go mesial. It's fine. Now, when you are doing a merge off a pre-op, you always have to do a smooth around the margin area first. So you can see our scatter that it's given us around here. So we're always going to have to smooth it off. And then I'll use the dropper and add a little bit more buffer back into our margin so that it doesn't chip. All right, and let's just put a couple of dabs there. So on, and that tooth is almost ready. I'm just going to distally move that. There we go. So that's essentially just like our original tooth. You can check it in a contact. Obviously, it's a little bit high. That is because I had some blue tack in there. So it was sitting a little bit higher than what it would usually. But if that were to be the case, you can actually, let's bring in the rest of the scan. So you can see it is sitting high there. So incisively, we can start to click that down a little bit. So I could view it from that angle. Oh, bring that down. Oh, keep on moving my mouse. I apologize. So that's out. Now I'll just use the slice tool. Bring that straight through. Oh. Like so. And then I would use the rubber tooth. I'll make this really small, so I'm not adjusting too much. There we go. So now we've basically got our prep design all good. You've got pretty good contacts all over. I might just swing that down one more tab, bring it down just a little bit lower. Let's just bring it at 50 microns and incisively. There we go. We're pretty good. And then, yeah, now you're good to go. So now you've just copied the original tooth. You check, once again, thickness overall, that's pretty good. And then you can go in to do your mill. You can do your sim once again in detailed on this particular tooth, and then you're good to mill out. So that's pretty much all basics of designing. I hope that helps. If obviously we want to go through some more, let's organise a webinar and I can help you on a few cases, maybe some live cases that you've done before, and we go from there. Cheers, thanks guys, and I'll speak to you then. Bye.